The glass was still cold when I felt my tongue go numb. Not drunk. Wrong. I watched my stepfather's smile linger a second too long as he pulled his hand away from my drink, his thumb brushing the rim like he owned it. I'm Marlowe Quinn, and this is the story of how silence became my weapon. Before we go further, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from right now. I want to see how far this story reaches. The balcony stretched out over the ocean, and the sound of waves crashing against rocks should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt like the world was laughing at me. My stepfather stood between me and the door, his body blocking the only exit. The wine glass felt heavy in my hand. Too heavy. My tongue had gone numb 30 seconds after he handed it to me, that same smile still plastered on his face. "Relax, Marlowe," he said, his voice low and sharp. "You're always so dramatic." My heartbeat slammed in my ears. Inside the beach house, I could hear my mother clinking plates in the kitchen, humming something cheerful. She had no idea what was happening 10 feet away from her. I looked down at the glass. The liquid inside was the same deep red as everyone else's wine, but something was wrong. My body knew it before my brain caught up. The edges of my vision blurred slightly, and my fingers felt disconnected from my hand. This wasn't alcohol. This was something else. Something deliberate. I looked up at him, and for the first time in my life, I didn't look away. Something inside me went perfectly still. He took a step closer, and I could smell his cologne mixed with the salt air. It made my stomach turn. "You've been tense all weekend," he continued, his tone almost fatherly. Almost. "Maybe you just need to loosen up." His eyes drifted toward the balcony railing, then back to me. The implication was clear. He wanted me to be vulnerable. He wanted me to complain. The realization hit me like ice water. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. He had planned this. He had stood in that kitchen, watched my mother pour wine for everyone, and waited for his moment. My grip tightened on the glass, and I forced my face into something that looked like a smile. It felt like breaking glass inside my mouth, but I did it anyway. "You're right," I said softly. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. "I have been tense." He relaxed slightly, thinking he'd won. Thinking I was too weak, too polite, too well-trained to call him out. I took a small step to the side, angling toward the door. "I think I just need to use the bathroom." The bathroom light was too bright. It hurt my eyes, but I was grateful for it. It meant I was still awake, still aware. I locked the door behind me and leaned against the sink, staring at my reflection. My pupils were slightly too large. My face was pale. The room tilted just enough to confirm what I already knew. He'd drugged me. My stepfather had drugged me, on a family holiday. In plain sight, I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the glass against the wall and storm out there and demand answers. But that wasn't going to work. Not with him. Not with my mother, who had spent 5 years convincing herself that he was a good man. I turned on the faucet and stuck my mouth under the cold water, rinsing out whatever was left of the wine. I spit it into the sink over and over until my mouth tasted like metal instead of almonds. Then I pulled the glass out of my purse where I'd hidden it and wrapped it carefully in a hand towel. Evidence. That's what this was now. Not a drink. Evidence. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the guest room bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe around me. The air conditioner clicked on and off. Floorboards popped as the temperature shifted. Down the hall, I could hear my mother and stepfather talking in low voices, then laughing. She had no idea. She had no idea what kind of man she'd married. I thought about all the times he'd made comments about me. Small things, tiny cuts disguised as jokes. "Marlowe's so sensitive. She's always been a little paranoid. She takes everything so personally." I thought he just didn't like me. I thought it was normal step-parent tension. But now, lying there in the dark, I saw it differently. He'd been laying groundwork. He'd been training everyone around us to dismiss me, to see me as unstable, so that if I ever spoke up, no one would believe me. This wasn't his first time. It couldn't be. People don't just wake up one day and decide to drug their stepdaughter. This was practiced. This was calculated. And that meant there were probably others. Next morning, I walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. My mother was making pancakes, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, smiling at me with the same warmth she'd always had. My stepfather sat at the table reading the newspaper, coffee steaming beside him. When I entered, he looked up. His eyes locked onto mine, searching, calculating, trying to figure out if I remembered, if I knew. I poured myself orange juice and sat down across from him. "Morning," I said brightly. Too bright. My mother turned. "Oh good, you're up. How did you sleep, honey?" Like a rock, I lied. My stepfather's jaw tightened slightly. He hadn't expected that. He'd expected me to be groggy, confused, maybe scared. Instead, I was smiling at him over breakfast like we were a normal family, like nothing had happened. "You left the balcony so quickly last night," he said casually. "I was worried you weren't feeling well." "I'm fine," I said. "I just needed some air." I met his eyes and didn't blink. I wanted him to see that I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Later that morning, I scheduled an appointment with my doctor. Routine, I told my mother, just a checkup. The lab was cold and sterile, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I handed the glass, still wrapped in the towel, to the technician. "I need this tested," I said. My voice was calm, clinical. She looked at the glass, then at me. "For what?" "Whatever isn't supposed to be in wine." She didn't ask more questions. She didn't need to. 3 days later, I got the results. Benzodiazepines, Rohypnol specifically, the date rape drug. It was right there in black and white, printed on clean paper with official letterhead. I sat in my car in the parking lot and stared at the document. Part of me had hoped I was wrong. Part of me had wanted it to be paranoia, to be dramatic like he always said I was. But I wasn't wrong. I wasn't dramatic, I was right. And now I had proof. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I just folded the paper carefully, placed it in a folder, and drove to work. I had a plan now, and plans required patience. My job wasn't glamorous, but it was precise. I worked in compliance for a mid-sized firm, reviewing policies, checking documentation, making sure everything followed the rules. It was boring work to most people, but to me, it was a language I understood. Rules had consequences. Violations had penalties. If you documented something correctly, if you followed the process, justice wasn't emotional. It was inevitable. I sat at my desk under the fluorescent lights, pulling up files on workplace harassment policies, criminal statutes, evidence chains. I wasn't researching for work. I was researching for myself. I learned about statute of limitations, about what constituted assault, about how evidence needed to be preserved. I learned that in my state, audio recordings were legal as long as one party consented. That party could be me. I started carrying a small recording device everywhere. Not hidden, not illegal, just ready. At lunch, a coworker asked if I was okay. "You seem different," she said. I smiled. "Just focused." I was. For the first time in years, I knew exactly what I was doing. I started keeping a ledger. Not a diary. A ledger. Facts only. Dates, times, locations, quotes. Every interaction with my stepfather got written down in clean, clinical language. No emotions, no interpretations, just data. August 10th, family dinner. He commented that I looked like I'd put on weight. Laughed when I didn't respond. August 15th, mother's birthday. He insisted on pouring my drink. I declined. He called me rude in front of guests. August 22nd, phone call. He asked when I'd be visiting again. The tone was insistent, almost aggressive. When I said I was busy, he said, "You're being dramatic again, Marlowe." I wrote it all down, every word, every gesture. Every time he stood too close or blocked a doorway or made a comment designed to make me feel small. Patterns emerged. He was escalating. The more I pulled away, the more aggressive he became. It was like watching a predator realize his prey was escaping. I also started asking questions, carefully. Quietly, I mentioned his name to a former coworker who'd left his company. Her face changed. "Why are you asking about him?" she said. I shrugged. "Just curious." She looked around, then leaned in. "Be careful, Marlowe, he has a reputation." The warning came during a coffee break. My coworker, Lisa, a woman I barely knew but had always liked, sat down across from me in the break room. She stirred her coffee slowly, not making eye contact. "I heard you talking about your stepfather the other day," she said quietly. I stiffened. "What about him?" She hesitated. "I used to work for his company 5 years ago." I waited. "There was a woman," Lisa continued. "An intern. She filed a complaint. Said he made her uncomfortable, cornered her in his office, and offered her drinks after work that made her feel wrong." My stomach dropped. "What happened to her?" Lisa's face went dark. "The complaint disappeared. She left the company quietly, got a payout, signed an NDA. He's still there, still in charge." She finally looked at me. "If you're asking about him, there's a reason. Just be smart. He's good at making problems go away." I nodded slowly. "Thank you." After she left, I sat there staring at my coffee. This wasn't just about me. This was bigger. And that meant I couldn't just walk away. I had to finish this. The mask slipped during a family dinner 2 weeks later. We were at a restaurant, something expensive and dimly lit. My mother was talking about a work project, and my stepfather was nodding along, playing the supportive husband. Then he turned to me. "Marlowe's been so distant lately," he said, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "I'm starting to think she doesn't like spending time with family anymore." My mother laughed. "Oh, she's just busy with work." "Maybe," he said. "Maybe she's just being difficult." The word hung in the air. Difficult, it was his favorite word for me. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table, a recording app already running. It was legal, I'd checked. "I'm not being difficult," I said calmly. "I'm just setting boundaries." His jaw tightened. "Boundaries," he repeated, almost mocking. "That's a very modern term, isn't it? In my day, we called it respect." "Respect goes both ways," I said. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping. "You've always been ungrateful, Marlowe. Your mother has done everything for you, and you repay her by acting like this." I didn't flinch. I just smiled. "I'm very grateful for everything." I let the silence sit. He didn't know I was recording. He didn't know I was documenting. He just thought he was winning. Mother's birthday arrived with the weight of a storm. The house was full of relatives, laughter, and the smell of roasted chicken. I stayed near the edges, watching. My stepfather was in his element, playing the charming host, pouring drinks, telling jokes. He drank heavily that night. Wine, then whiskey, then more wine. His cheeks flushed red and his voice got louder. I stayed sober. I stayed sharp. At one point, he cornered me in the hallway. "You're not drinking," he said. It sounded like an accusation. "I'm driving," I lied. "Since when do you care about rules?" His breath smelled like alcohol and something sour. I stepped back. "Since always." He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You think you're better than everyone, don't you?" I didn't answer. He leaned closer and I felt my heartbeat pick up. "You think you're so smart," he hissed. "But you're not. You're just a scared little girl playing dress-up." I kept my face blank. "I need to get back to the party." I walked away, but I felt his eyes on me the entire time. Later, I wrote it all down. Every word, every gesture. The file was getting thick. He cornered me again 3 days later. This time there was no drink, no pretense, just words. I was at my mother's house picking up mail I'd forgotten, and he appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, blocking my exit. "We need to talk," he said. My pulse jumped, but I kept my voice steady. "About what?" "About your attitude." He stepped closer. "You've been cold to me for weeks. Your mother's noticed. She's worried about you." "I'm fine," I said. "No," he said sharply. "You're not. You're making everyone uncomfortable. You're making me look bad." I met his eyes. "That's not my responsibility." His face twisted with anger. "You ungrateful little. Is everything okay in here?" The voice came from behind him. My aunt standing in the hallway holding a casserole dish. Her eyes moved between us, sharp and assessing. My stepfather's face smoothed instantly. "Of course," he said, stepping back with a forced smile. "Just catching up with Marlowe." My aunt didn't look convinced, but she nodded. "Well, don't let me interrupt." I grabbed my mail and left. But as I walked to my car, I saw her watching from the window. She'd heard something, maybe not everything, but enough. Doubt had entered the room. The witness changed everything. My aunt called me 2 days later. "Marlowe," she said carefully, "I need to ask you something." I gripped the phone. "Okay." "Is everything all right at home with your stepfather?" I hesitated. This was the moment. If I said yes, it ended here. If I said no, everything would start moving. "No," I said quietly, "it's not." She was silent for a long moment. "What's been happening?" I told her. Not everything, not the drink, but enough. The comments, the control, the way he made me feel small and trapped. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. "I'm not surprised," she said. "I've always thought there was something off about him. Your mother wouldn't listen." "She loves him," I said. "Love makes people blind," my aunt replied. "But it doesn't make them stupid. She'll see eventually." I wasn't so sure, but now I had someone who believed me, someone who would remember this conversation if things got worse. That was enough, for now. At work, something unexpected happened. A file crossed my desk during a routine compliance review. It was an internal report about a potential conflict of interest involving vendor relationships. The company name was familiar. My stepfather's company. I stared at the document. My hands went cold. This wasn't about him directly, but the company was flagged for potential policy violations involving employee conduct and undisclosed settlements. My heart raced. This was a door I hadn't expected to open, but I couldn't touch it, not directly. If I did, it would look like a personal vendetta. It would compromise the investigation. So I did the only thing I could do. I recused myself. I sent the file to my supervisor with a clean, professional note. Potential conflict of interest due to family relationship. Requesting reassignment of review to neutral party. My supervisor didn't ask questions. She just reassigned it. But the file stayed open. The investigation continued, and I had made sure my name wasn't on it. Now all I had to do was wait. The system would do the work. I just had to let it go. The ethical line was razor-thin, and I walked it carefully. I couldn't participate in the investigation. I couldn't feed information directly, but I could make sure the right people knew where to look. I mentioned casually to a colleague in HR that there had been complaints at my stepfather's company in the past. Complaints that seemed to disappear. I didn't say more than that. I didn't need to. Compliance officers are like bloodhounds. Once they catch a scent, they don't let go. 2 weeks later, I heard through the office grapevine that the review had expanded. They were looking into settlement agreements, NDA patterns, employee turnover rates. All standard procedures, all perfectly legal. My stepfather had no idea. He was still drinking his coffee in the morning, going to work, coming home, kissing my mother on the cheek. He thought he was untouchable. That was his first mistake. Arrogance makes men reckless, and reckless men leave trails. At dinner that week, my stepfather was in a good mood. Too good. He poured himself a third glass of wine and leaned back in his chair, laughing loudly at his own joke. "You know what I love about my job?" he said to no one in particular. "I'm untouchable, 30 years in that company and no one can touch me." My mother smiled indulgently. "You've worked hard." "Damn right I have." He looked at me. "That's what your generation doesn't understand, Marlowe. Hard work, loyalty. You kids think you can just cry to HR and get whatever you want." I kept my face neutral. "Is that what you think?" "I know it," he said. "I've seen it. Some intern files a complaint because I offered her a drink after work and suddenly I'm the bad guy. Please," he laughed. "The company knows who's valuable. They protect their own." My mother's smile faltered slightly. "What complaint?" He waved a hand. "Nothing. Ancient history. Some girl trying to get attention. It went away." I looked down at my plate. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The recording device in my pocket caught every syllable. The second incident wasn't me. It was someone else, a young woman at a company event. I wasn't there, but I heard about it from Lisa, who still had friends at my stepfather's company. "He did it again," she said quietly over coffee. "Offered a new hire a drink at the holiday party. She got sick, really sick, had to leave early." "Did she report it?" I asked. Lisa shook her head. "Not yet, she's scared, but security footage exists. The venue has cameras." My pulse quickened. "Do you know her name?" Lisa hesitated, then wrote it on a napkin and slid it across the table. "Be careful," she said. "This is bigger than you think." I stared at the name. This wasn't just a pattern anymore. This was a system, and systems could be dismantled. I reached out to the woman through mutual contact. I didn't tell her about me. I just asked if she was okay, if she needed support. She didn't respond immediately. But 2 days later, she did. "I don't know what to do," she wrote. "Everyone says he's too powerful." "He's not," I replied, "and you're not alone." A call came on a Tuesday morning. Neutral tone, formal questions. "Ms. Quinn, this is the compliance department from Harrington and Associates. We're conducting a review related to vendor conduct policies and your name came up in reference materials. Do you have time to answer a few questions?" I sat up straighter. "Of course." They asked about my stepfather's company, about any interactions I'd had, about whether I'd ever witnessed inappropriate behavior. I answered everything honestly, calmly. I gave dates, I gave names. I provided documentation I'd been keeping, my ledger, my recordings, the lab results from the drink. I told them about the intern from 5 years ago, about the woman from the holiday party. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't editorialize. I just gave them facts. When the call ended, the compliance officer thanked me. "We'll be in touch if we need anything further," she said. "Ms. Quinn, I want you to know this information is very helpful." I hung up and sat in the silence of my apartment. It was done. I'd given my statement. Now the system would move, and my stepfather had no idea. He still thought he was untouchable. He was wrong. My mother noticed the distance before I was ready for her to. She called me one evening, her voice tight with worry. "Marlowe, you've been avoiding us." "I've been busy," I said. "Don't lie to me. You barely visit anymore. You don't stay for dinners. You're cold to your stepfather." I closed my eyes. "Mom, I need to tell you something." She went quiet. I told her, not everything, not yet, but enough. I told her about the drink, about the lab results, about the way he'd been treating me for years, making me feel small and crazy and wrong. She was silent for a long time. "That's a serious accusation, Marlowe." "It's not an accusation," I said. "It's the truth. Do you have proof?" I hesitated. Then I said, "Yes. I want to see it." The next day, I drove to her house. My stepfather wasn't home. I placed a folder on the kitchen table. Lab results, dates, recordings, witness statements, everything. "I need you to read this," I said, "and then I need you to decide what kind of person you want to be married to." She stared at the folder like it might bite her. "Marl, just read it, Mom, please." I left her there. I didn't stay to watch. I couldn't. She called me that night. Her voice was shaking. I read it. I waited. I don't know what to say. "You don't have to say anything," I told her. "You just have to decide if you believe me." "I do," she whispered. "I do believe you." I felt something crack open in my chest. Relief, grief, anger, all of it at once. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I'm not going to ignore this." That was enough. It had to be. 2 days later, she asked him to leave. "Temporarily," she said. Just while she figured things out, he was furious. He called me, screaming, accusing me of destroying the family. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. I saved the recording. She opened the folder again the next morning. I wasn't there, but she told me later what happened. She read every page, every date, every word he'd said, every piece of evidence I'd collected. Her hands shook. When she got to the lab results, the proof that he'd drugged me, she stopped breathing. She told me she had to put the folder down and walk outside just to keep from screaming. When my stepfather came home that evening, she was waiting for him. "We need to talk," she said. He was still acting like everything was fine, like he could charm his way out of this the way he'd charmed his way out of everything else. "Of course, sweetheart, what's wrong?" She slid the folder across the table. "Explain this." He went pale, then red, then pale again. "Where did you get that?" "From our daughter." He laughed. It was a cruel, bitter sound. "That's what this is about, Marlowe's lies." "These aren't lies," my mother said. Her voice was steel. "These are facts, dates, evidence, lab results." He tried to deny it. He tried to say I was making it up, that I was unstable, that I'd always been dramatic. But my mother didn't flinch. "Get out," she said. He stared at her. "What?" "Get out of my house." He left, and she locked the door behind him. The consequences came faster than I expected. Within a week, his company suspended him pending the findings of the internal investigation. Friends stopped calling. Colleagues stopped answering emails. The man who had spent 30 years building a reputation as untouchable was suddenly very, very touchable. I heard through Lisa that the compliance review had uncovered a pattern. Multiple complaints over 15 years. Settlements, NDAs, threats. My stepfather had been protected by money and power and fear. But now the fear is gone. The women he'd silenced started talking. Quietly at first, then louder. One of them hired a lawyer, then another, then another. It became a wave. And my stepfather was drowning in it. He still thought he could talk his way out. He sent my mother flowers. He sent me emails, apologies mixed with threats. He called my aunt, trying to get her to convince me to drop this. But there was nothing to drop. I wasn't prosecuting him. I wasn't suing him. I was just telling the truth. And the truth had consequences. The final determination came 6 weeks later. The investigation concluded that my stepfather had violated multiple company policies over a span of 15 years. Harassment, misconduct, abuse of power. He was terminated. No severance. No retirement package, just a letter and an empty office. His reputation collapsed overnight. People who had once called him a mentor now called him a predator. He tried to fight it. He hired lawyers. He threatened to sue the company for wrongful termination. But the evidence was overwhelming. And more importantly, people were no longer afraid of him. The house felt different after that. Lighter. My mother started smiling again, real smiles, not the forced ones she'd been wearing for years. She apologized to me. She cried. She said she should have seen it sooner, should have believed me sooner. I told her it was okay, and I meant it. We couldn't change the past. But we could build something better in the future. I moved out quietly 3 months later. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. I found a small apartment on the north side of the city with big windows and sunlight that poured in every morning. I painted the walls soft blue. I bought plants. I hung art that I actually liked. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. My mother visited once a week. We had coffee. We talked about small things, work, weather, books. We didn't talk about him. We didn't need to. He was gone, not just from the house, from our lives. I saw him once, months later, at a grocery store. He looked smaller, older. He saw me and froze. I didn't stop walking. I didn't say anything. I just kept moving, my cart rolling smoothly down the aisle. He wasn't worth my words. He wasn't worth my anger. He was just a man who had tried to hurt me and failed. I walked out into the sunlight, loaded my groceries into my car, and drove home. I didn't look back. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. No dramatic confrontations, no big speeches, just steady, inevitable consequences. He lost his job. He lost his credibility. He lost access to the life he'd built on lies and fear. And I gained something I hadn't expected. Peace. I got promoted at work. My manager said I'd shown exceptional judgment and ethical clarity during a difficult personal situation. I didn't tell her the details. I didn't need to. My mother started dating again. Someone kind, someone who made her laugh. She was happy. I'm really happy. And I was free from fear, free from silence, free from the weight of carrying someone else's secrets. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no. Silence wasn't weakness. It was a strategy, and strategy set me free. I didn't destroy him with revenge fantasies or rage. I destroyed him with documentation, patience, and the truth. And in the end, that was more devastating than anything I could have screamed. What would you do in this situation? If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss future stories. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. I read every single one. Remember, your voice matters, and speaking your truth is never dramatic. It's survival. Thank you for being here.